You are listening to Beyond the Verse, a Star Citizen podcast. A show dedicated to Cloud Imperium games, Star Citizen, and Squadron 42. Whether you fight, explore, unite, and/or trade, we bring you news, updates, interviews, reviews, and analysis. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a pour of Radegast, and join us as we go Beyond the Verse.
Launch sequence activated.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Beyond the Verse Star Citizen podcast. I'm your host, Solus, and we are joined here today by my very good friend, Starjump Grim. I'm laughing my ass off because we're actually recording this introduction after our entire show because yours truly forgot to hit record.
It happens.
Dude, been doing this for like 8 years, you know? So please bear with us for the next couple minutes. You're going to hear audio only, and then about 2 minutes later it'll switch over to video and it'll be your regularly expected show. But Grim, since we're not going to get that on audio, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
How have you been, man? Just quickly recapping everything we just talked about. How have you been?
I've been good, real life's been kicking my butt a little bit. We've had a lot going on. Got a new puppy, so things have been real busy at the household, but things are now starting to shift back, and I'm starting to turn a little bit of attention back to Starjump. Good. And obviously, with any new event like Invictus Launch Week, we get really busy with fleet viewers. We're updating things. So, I'm back into it. Excitement's riding high for Star Citizen and 323. Things are good.
Well, fantastic. We had an amazing hour and about 15-minute conversation.
Good, yeah.
Can't wait for everybody to listen and watch it. We cover Invictus Launch Week. We covered the sort of the May subscriber flare. Did we cover that? I don't think we did. I think we skipped over that.
No.
Okay. But we basically spent most of our time at Invictus Launch Week with a couple of 323 predictions and 4.0 predictions and what we can expect for the rest of this year when it comes to ships and some gold nuggets coming out of Grim's experience with what he does. So stay tuned, stand by. We're going to do this better next time. So
let's get into it.
Thanks, Grim.
Everything in your hangar and calculate your costs and look at CCU chains, all your buybacks. Then on the fleet viewer side, it's a way to visualize your fleet in high fidelity. We take a slightly different approach than some of the other fleet viewers out there that maybe rely more on 3D models, and we kind of do just high fidelity still assets. But it's been really successful since we launched it, I guess about 2 years ago now. So everyone's getting a lot of usage out of it. Our numbers for it are just like through the roof.
That's great.
But then we also have a YouTube channel where we do a bunch of discussion shows and all kind of, I do ship analysis videos on my shipyard series and all kinds of stuff. We don't have the most consistent cadence of release is our biggest problem, and that's because a lot of our projects have really long development times. We're kind of working on something in the background now that's like the successor to sort of Fleet Viewer in a way, and it's just going to take a while to bake. So and I'll have the links to everything you just discussed in the show notes, both on YouTube and on podcast. But and not to go back to episode 28, but I think I discovered y'all when you did the the Idris and the Javelin and the Kraken, the large capital ship vehicle analysis videos. Really got me hooked. And then of course, if you're on social media and you see anyone's fleet, it more than likely is coming from Fleet Viewer. So yeah, man. Yeah, it's cool to see people posting all the pictures and stuff and using the tool. I see it everywhere, which is kind of fun and stuff, so it's been cool. Yeah,
it's a content creator's dream come true. So thank you for what you do. Thanks for what your org does. And again, welcome back onto the show.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So for this week on Beyond the Verse, we had a lot of news since Friday. Let me just go through the agenda real quick, and then we'll get into the fine points of this conversation. So on Friday, going way back, like literally minutes after I recorded the last episode, we had Jump Point 1202 release that covered all things the Mirai Pulse, which I can't wait to hear Grim's response on that. But we had the Mirai Pulse and the Jump Point. We had the Invictus Launch Week teaser video and save the date, which is going to be the bulk, the meat of what we talk about today. There is a lot of content for us to dive into. So we'll take the video and we'll splice it and look at screenshots, and it's going to be crazy. Stay tuned for that. Moving on to Monday, we had This Week in Star Citizen, which teased 323 as quote unquote early in the week. And if you've been a backer at Star Citizen, you have to add like 2 or 3 days to that. So I predicted Thursday, and again, like I said last night, it did not drop. You know what I think happened, Grim?
You predicted. That was the problem right there.
They were all in a room. Chris Roberts probably called like an all hands and said, look, we got to stop giving Beyond the Verse dubs. We've got to, I know we want to release it on Thursday, but let's postpone it to Friday. I guarantee you that's what happened.
Yeah.
No, it didn't. That was stupid. So on Tuesday, we had the May subscriber flare. Not a lot of ship conversation there, but I'd love to get Grim's thoughts on the ships that are tied to Centurion and Imperador. For this month, it's the X1, and it is the 400i. On Wednesday, we had the Squadron 42 monthly report. We're going to cover that on this show. Too much other things to talk about. And then last Thursday, we had the Inside Star Citizen Pause and Clause video. Go watch it. It's an amazing 16-minute video on the Merrick and the Copian. We had a tease of the Aegis Saber. I'm going to call it the Firebird. So we're going to get into that towards the end of this conversation, and then we'll end after that. So a lot to dive into. A lot to go into. So here we go.
Incoming message.
All right, so we're going to get into from the community real quick, and this will prompt a lot of conversations between me and Grim. But like we do on the end of every single episode, we ask on Spotify, we ask a poll and a Q&A. So for last week's poll, we asked, which Mirai Pulse will you be getting? And so I'm just going to share my screen so you can see numbers. The Mirai Pulse we'll be getting, we had the base, which no one voted for. No one was interested in the base. Yeah. We had 37.5% vote LX. And then we had 25% both, which I guess would have been, considering the base. And then another 37.5% said neither, not interested in the Pulse. So let me pause. I've been talking a lot so far. Graham, the floor is yours. What are your thoughts on the Mirai Pulse? What did you think when you saw the teaser and you read about it?
I thought it looked like a Star Atlas ship, and I don't mean that as a knock on it. I think Star Atlas has a sort of design style to some of their vehicles that this sort of felt like. So it was interesting when they did the ISC on the Pulse, the designers talked about a little bit of a different sort of design vision they had for the Pulse, and if you read the jump point, they highlight that a little bit too. So that was interesting, and that made total sense. I actually think it's a really cool looking hover bike, and I kind of want the LX.
Yeah.
So I get the excitement around it. To your poll though, it's not surprising that people didn't vote for the base, and here's why. I do think on some of these little vehicles, people are starting to question the value of just attaching a gun to it because it's almost so non-effective that you might as well just have it to scoot around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that may be something to do with it. And again, I think once distribution centers, player-made outposts and base building and all that, once that comes online, I think there might be a little bit more usage for ground vehicles with weapons, because you're going to want to patrol and stuff. But I think right now, for all intents and purposes, ground vehicles are used to kind of just scoot around on and have fun with and or race. So I can kind of see why people are more interested in this from that perspective.
Sure.
But yeah, I think they're both really cool looking. If I had to guess, I'll probably grab the LX version. And, it's that classic argument. I like that it can just sort of fit into anything. This does look like it'll fit into anything, by the way, even like a C8X or something. So,
it does. Yeah.
Yeah. That's always handy.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. First off, when this first got teased or first got dropped, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to use this as an Invictus launch week like CCU token. I'm just going to use it for its LTI upgrade. And then I saw the video, and yes, you were 100% correct. It being able to fit into literally anything, like a 36 container sized box.
Yeah,
like that. Yeah. That's very appealing to me. But I kind of pivoted on the base. I don't think I'm going to get the base, but when they showed the base model going into a bunker and using it as like a weapon system inside of a bunker.
Well, see, I think that piece of video, that clip they used was was smart to use, first off, and it gave people a lot of ideas. So I think in regards to the weapon, they're not thinking of it as a ground attack vehicle now. They're thinking of it as essentially a wearable gun that you can go into bunkers. So I think there was some strategy behind that clip, not just I don't think they were using it just to be funny.
Yeah. Completely fair. I immediately thought of in Fallout having like the super suit or the super suit with the minigun. Like that's kind of what this feels like.
And the gun looks cool and fires cool. I mean, I love it. I think it's really, really interesting. So it's all going to come down to that price point. Yeah. And I think that's the big question mark there with those.
Yeah, absolutely. So the second one, we asked a Q&A, and we don't need to dive into this yet because I think this is the bulk of why we're talking today. But I asked the question, with the teasing of ship announcements during Invictus Launch Week, what ships will be released in what order? So we have a listener, Dakota Riley, says the Polaris, the Apollo, and the URSA Medical on day one. Not sure about any others. We'll respond in a second. I think the Apollo is, well, do we want to do it now or do we want to do it later? Let's just knock out like our high level thoughts here. But the Polaris, with it being a flyby, I don't think it's launching for this Invictus Launch Week. It's a flyby. We're gonna 100%. We're gonna see it. It's gonna fly by. It's gonna be sexy. But I think whatever.
Which in and of itself is really cool that CIG is doing. I never expected the Polaris for Invictus. So the fact that they're including it as a flyby, big hats off to them. I think it's a great way to build hype for the ship, and they kind of need to, because this is going to be an expensive ship, one of the most expensive flight ready ships they've done in a while when it goes flight ready at the end of this year. So they need to start building that hype now, because when it does go flight ready, they need to sell a lot of these.
Yeah.
They're putting a lot of effort into this big ship. You don't want to just sell 500 of them. You want to sell a lot. So it really makes sense for them to start Easter egging it throughout the year. So I think it was a smart move by them.
Well, let me ask you this, and I'm doing exactly what I told you I wouldn't do. But let me ask you what your thoughts are on the Polaris real quick. What does this mean for on how far along they are with the ship? Because in theory, you're going to be able to fly pretty close up to it. So you would think that the exoskeleton is LOD 0, or it's pretty close to being done.
Yeah, so I think the exterior is mostly done. I think it is at load 0, which they announced in a previous monthly report. I think last Star Citizen monthly report, they said the exterior had hit load 0, which was interesting to me. I was like, oh wow, it caught my eye that they announced that, because they don't typically do that till later in a ship's cycle. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if we'll see it in some way. So it's interesting that this happened. The interior, though, they just at the same time had said that certain areas had hit final gray box, and some had entered in polishing. So I knew the ship wouldn't be ready. But the thing you have to always remember on all ships, including the big ships, and the Santaki I was another ship that got stuck in this phase for a long time, is the downstream teams. You can't forget those. So, and those are your audio teams, the visual effects teams, all them. They have to take care of the ships too. So, the Polaris is going to have to get sound design throughout. It's going to have to get, any sort of technical animation stuff going on. So, for example, one of the things they work on a lot are landing gear animations, door animations, the hangar animations, all that stuff. Those people don't usually come in and do their work on the ship until it's past, a lot of this production work. So, just looking at the monthly reports, it was pretty clear this ship is going to be an end of year thing. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can talk about
that's fine. I want them to do it right. So take your time.
100%. I was also surprised, and I do think the flyby, what got me into Star Citizen from the very beginning, regardless, was Invictus Launch Week, and seeing the flyby and seeing the involvement that this event had. And so I think throwing in more of these opportunities, like beyond the showroom, but the flybys, and like they need to do that with the Perseus. They need to do that with the Kraken when it comes out. Absolutely.
And well, and those that know me, I'm obviously a big Kraken fan, but I've been saying for a long time for Drake Defense Con, they need to have the Kraken sitting out there on the deck again, like they did in that SitCon demo in 2018. In the
Yeah.
CitizenCon demo that Chris Roberts presented on stage, they had a Kraken sitting out there. Now they were showing the Mustang and showing Lorville, but when it took off, they flew past the Kraken. It was sitting there. It's the game model.
Yeah.
It's ready to go. It's all optimized for the game. So they could easily put it out there again. I would love for them to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if they will, but I
we
think it would be funny though if Drake did it for this Defense Con, because there's always been that concept art of the Drake and the Polaris. The Polaris crashed and the Kraken landed. I think that would be really cool for Defense Con to try to one up the Polaris by putting their Kraken out there. Just saying, CIG, I got ideas for dates.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, and they could do literally anything. They could drop a Kraken in the middle of a planet and just say, go tour it in the middle of selling.
Yeah, exactly. So
very cool. The next
no interior, but we don't always need the interior to enjoy the ship. So.
Or they could do something like the Idris or the Javelin tour and just release half of it, right? And you go in and see what is done and lock up the rest. So the next answer from John Sheepgo says the Zeus Polaris and the Apollo. I have my own reactions about the Zeus here in a second. And then the last response, Nick, says there is so much teased in just the trailer for Invictus Launch Week. Absolutely. The Pulse will be the first, of course, and then will probably be some other smaller fry. The first medium-large ship will probably be the Zeus. So we'll get into the Zeus, my reactions to that here towards that when we get there. Back to Twitter and the polls there. I think this is going to be super interesting to go through. But the Polaris roll call, about 1.6k views, 270 votes. I asked, to celebrate the Polaris's involvement in this Invictus 2954, do you have the JPEG in your hangar already? I have this running joke. It's very expensive JPEG. It's about a $700 JPEG. It is, it just kind of sits in your hangar. So, so let's go through the results. This surprised me. 41.5% said no and won't be. Not even going to consider the Polaris. And then we have 40% say yes. We have 14.4% say no, but maybe later. After Invictus Launch Week, and then 4.1% say no, but will purchase Invictus Launch Week. So, Grim, do you have the Polaris? What are your thoughts on this poll?
I do. I had to go through a lot to get the Polaris, and shout out to Big T.O. at CIG for helping me get all that settled. But
nice.
I do. I think the Polaris does have one, and I'm a big lover of the ship and the concept and design. I love the design of it. It's one of my favorites, actually, in the game.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for it, and I've owned it for a while. Here's what the Polaris has going against it, though, especially to people who would be considering it. There's still a lot of big question marks surrounding it that we don't fully know. There's still, the current big controversy going on right now is what size are the turrets, because over the course of several of the last videos CIG has shown on the progress, the turrets keep switching size pretty wildly.
Nice.
But also, we really don't. There's just a lot we don't know about the ship. You know what I mean? We don't know the length it grew to. One of the other big question marks behind it is the crew size. The Polaris was concepted back in the day when the big crew sizes were a thing. So I think its maximum crew size or whatever, or its average crew size was listed as 16 or 14 or something. But CIG has shifted from that over time. If you look at a later concept like the Perseus, or even some of these other ships, they're making an effort to get the crew sizes down, right? So the Perseus has a crew size of 4, and looking at the beds in the Polaris, there's some hints that maybe CIG's brought the crew size requirements down, but we don't know. So I still think the Polaris has a few unknowns that are pretty important to people, and those few unknowns can be a big deal when it's a $750 ship. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would expect during Invictus, we're going to get an ISC dedicated to the Polaris, or a large part of it, because again, what they're going to do is start drumming up interest for this ship, and it wouldn't surprise me if that ILW or that Inside Star Citizen is the day before Invictus starts, because RSI is on the first day, and they're going to want to sell Polarises.
Yeah,
I'm guessing.
that makes total sense. Yeah, and it's just quickly for those of you listening who might not know, it's a Corvette ship. Think Hammerhead, so it's a lot like the Hammerhead. Its sister, I'm going to call it its sister ship, is the Perseus. So I think there's a lot of similarities between the Polaris and the Perseus. The Polaris being a torpedo ship and the Perseus being a gunship. So if you didn't already know, I'm sure everybody does. I know you do, Grim, because you've been
and
really
that
diving deep
adds a
into
little bit to that confusion, because some of the earliest concept literature CIG put out said that the Polaris was a versatile ship that could take on a wide range of situations, and does now seem like the CIG is trying to say, okay, this is our torpedo boat, and that's what it does. You need to. So I think there's just a lot of messaging confusion around the Polaris, but I have no doubt that CIG is about to clear that up for us during this event.
And I think an Inside Star Citizen would be a perfect platform for them to do that.
Yeah, I think that's coming.
And it should be
sort of like you can't ignore the elephant in the room. The Polaris. I mean, if you watch the trailer, which we will in a little bit, the Polaris is in like every shot. They did. That's purposeful. You know, there's a reason behind that. So
and that's exactly what I was going to say. Is if it's spearheading the event, you can expect a lot of literature, a lot of videos on it. So, and they should call it Identity Crisis. To your point. All right, back to the polls. This next one has nothing to do with ships, but yes. Okay, so this was Monday. And they said inside the This Week in Star Citizen article, they said early this week. So I asked. Well, first off, I stated happy 323 in the PU week, so it needs to happen within the next 2 days. But on brand, Beyond the Verse podcast is publicly predicting we'll have 323 in the PU by end of week, so that could still happen, everybody. But this allows, and I put little notes in here, but this allows for like next week, the launch of this week, the launch of 323. Next week, we can focus on Xenothreat Raid, which there's some thoughts of it happening after Invictus Launch week, which I don't know. We can talk about that if you want to, but. And then that gives us 2 full weeks of Invictus Launch week, and hopefully the servers being put out, the fires being put out on the servers, hopefully, during the that server volatility. So I asked what the thoughts were, and 48.4% say this Thursday. Well, the majority of people are wrong. 26.3% say today, so this Friday. 12.9% say this weekend, and then 12.4% are like, not a chance, ain't happening. We're not going to see 323 until next week. So, what are your thoughts, man? Well, we know it's not Thursday. You think it's today? You think it's today or the weekend?
I think there's a high likelihood they could push it today. But I would only put that at about like 85-90%. I think the CIG wants to conserve that little bit to make sure they get this critical bug out.
Yeah.
But I will say that I'm pretty vocal proponent of them not doing quarterly updates and doing like, twice a year bigger updates, giving them more time to bake things. So I'm one of those people that's like, I'm glad they've been taking their time on 323, trying to get it right. The last thing I want is 323 to release with all these features I've been waiting on, like the star map and all this other stuff, and then the damn thing be unplayable. So I want them to let it bake. I got other games and stuff I can play sometimes when I'm waiting. So I personally, I hope if it's not quite ready today, then take into Saturday, take into Sunday. I do think they need to get it out, though, before Invictus, because I think they have certain dependencies tied to the Point X patch that they'll unlock and stuff for ILW. So I think they're under a little bit of a pressure, to get it out soon. So my bet's today, though. My bet's today.
Yeah, I think before we started recording, I think we discussed it's probably going to happen like as we're talking.
Right.
Which let's go into the patch notes, and I'll kind of explain why I'm saying that. So last night, they pushed another build to the EPTU, and that's why like Thursday was not going to happen. But they pushed it because of an entity graph issue. So do you want to explain entity graph, or would you like me to?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. So object container streaming and persistent entity streaming, the way they talk and what they reference to be relevant is this entity graph. So object container streaming, it's any item in the game gets serialized. So that way we're not taking up space on a server. It's a way to easily manage. So you're holding that cruise bottle, you go put it behind a rock, that whole sequence gets serialized and put on the back end. Well, that goes towards a database. So the persistent entity streaming references that to persist whether you're in game or out. So I can log out of the game, log back in, and that's how I still have rifles, in my ship, and I still have like that cruise behind that rock because my shard references, that persistent entity streaming references the entity graph. So if the entity graph is down, you've got a major tech pillar that's unreliable. And so that is a deal breaker for any major build. And that's what they were trying to monitor. They put in the build last night. They've been monitoring it while the EU is awake and playing and getting their hands dirty in it. And so far, according to the SC test chat, it's been a positive experience. So I am very, very confident it's going to probably either release right now as we're talking or at some point later today. But I usually go through the actual patch notes. I go through line by line and just say, hey, here's what you can expect. But at the end of the day, it's the same exact build, just with a different tech to address the entity graph. So, I don't know. Was that a good enough description?
I think that was a fantastic description.
Okay. Skills. Okay. Last question, and then we'll get on to the meat of of this podcast. But the last question, completely unrelated, really, to Star Citizen. But this caught fire, and I don't know why. I don't know why this caught fire. I think people are just waiting on 323, so they're bored and they're on social media. But I simply asked, what settings are you running for image upscaling? So DLSS, FSR, TSR, and then what's funny is my fourth option was what the F is image upscaling. Because a lot of people don't know. But I say this caught wind because this is my most engaged poll I've ever asked in the Beyond the Verse podcast. Over 7,000 views, over 1,000 votes, and there's still 3 hours left to vote. But here are the results. So 64.8% voted DLSS, which is an NVIDIA base that's using your GPU to image upscale. 18.9% don't know what the hell image upscaling even is, which I guess we can describe it here in a second. FSR, which is used as a chipset to image upscale, that's 11.9%. And then your TSR uses the Unreal Engine to image upscale, and that's 4.4%. Let me nerd out and say real quick, image upscaling, it's like an artificial way of making the image crisper and better, but it has to pull a resource. So it's either going to pull from your GPU chipset, a running engine, whatever, but you don't always have to have it, and it tends to bog down the system. So people were mad at me for not having an off option, not running image upscaling, but let me shut up for a couple of seconds. Grim, any response to this? Any advice? You talked about a video you saw that compared the three, but overall reactions to this.
I wish I had that up and knew the name of the person that made the video, but there's a video going around right now of someone who does tech analysis videos on Star Citizen, probably other games too, but he just did a great video on the differences between all of the upscaling and the clear winner there being DLSS quality. There's a quality setting and a performance setting on that. So the DLSS quality setting was noticeably better in my opinion, because he'd have them all side by side zooming in on things, while all the other ones seem to have quite a bit of artifacting, flickering, and other little issues. So I actually don't think I was on DLSS, so I actually want to try that. I'm kind of excited to try that out. But I also am a little interested on why it's so popular. I think Star Citizen, though, is one of those games. Again, part of this is because it's unoptimization, but I think everyone's just trying to eke out every little bit of performance gain they can. So it's a big deal. So.
It is. Which I don't know. If it's me, I don't work for CIG. I'm not associated with them. So take this with a grain of salt, but I don't know. Leave it off just for now. Leave it off, because any sort of modification you make to your graphics to quote unquote make it better, it already runs slow. This game is already not optimized yet for the client side. So I don't know. Be patient. Don't get so hung up on image upscaling and whether or not to use Vulkan versus DX. Just play the game.
Yeah, and there's a lot of big optimizations that still have to come down the pipe, and that when they do, things are going to get better. I think it's a little early to squeeze out that 1% better experience.
Yeah.
We have everything from better net code to interior ship culling to all kinds of stuff that they are, on the list to deal with,
Yeah.
that we haven't seen yet. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's get into finally 33 minutes into the podcast.
yeah.
Let's get into the meat and potatoes of why Grim and I are talking and why this episode's called Ship Talking in 323. Invictus launch week. So on last Friday, Save the Date came out. You're looking at it on the screen if you're on YouTube. So we have 7 days, 3 hours, and 16 minutes left until the start of it. But you can go through on here on your own time and read all the details and see the dates and see the calendar of events. But the main reason why I wanted to bring Grim on is because of the video. So we're going to watch the 45 seconds real quick. If you're on podcast, you're just going to hear music, but I do want to take the next several minutes pausing and splicing and doing what I need to do to the video, and we can hear Grim's response when we see some of these teasers, and let's have some fun with it. So here we go. That's so motivational.
It is great music.
I feel like going and serving in the military again. Let's go.
Yeah.
Man, so first off, I wish the game played that smoothly. Like the graphics are just stunning and gorgeous, and seeing the flybys and the NPC characters.
Yeah.
Squadron 42 can't come fast enough.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's do this. I'm going to mute it so we don't keep hearing the music, but tell me when to stop. So we get started. Well, there's the first glimpse.
I think this is the first place to stop when we see the Polaris kind of, coming into frame. The big thing I like to point out about this that a lot of people don't realize, some people do, especially they've been following the Polaris for a long time, is this is the first time we've ever really seen what the Polaris exterior is supposed to look like. And yes, I know they just got done building it, so technically that's true for all of us, but going back to the Polaris's concept images and all the stuff we'd seen about it up to this time, has all been like painting.
Yes.
They did render out 3D geometry, but then they just painted over it. So they painted in the panel lines. It was essentially a piece of art. Where more modern ships like the Perseus, the key art we saw for that when its concept was released was actual geometry, actual 3D. Now it was the concept model, but it was actual 3D. We'd never gotten that with the Polaris, which is why the Polaris's hollow model's always been super simplified and kind of rough looking.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a big deal. This is the first time we've seen the Polaris truly envisioned how CIG thought it should be envisioned.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest things you notice right away is that it is got a lot of panel and color cues from the Perseus applied to it, which is really cool to see. Gavin Rothery, who was a guest on our show Starjump Station, CIG ship designer who designed Kraken and tons of ships, who also designed the Perseus. You can see some of that exterior DNA from the Perseus brought over to the Polaris here, and I'm not talking shape. I'm talking more like colors, panel lines, just look and feel, vibe.
Yeah, no, so that's interesting from a Starjump org perspective. Then what do you work with if you don't have like you said, it was painted on, it was maybe artificial from that standpoint? How do you start movement on your projects if you don't have like a good resource?
Yeah, there's a lot of ships like that. Especially all the old concepts.
Yes.
Orion, Merchantman, Crucible, all those. And honestly, I rebuild them from scratch. Now I use their base hollow model, and then I just build on top of that, so that I'm not changing it really. I'm just adding detail because it was more about bringing the fidelity up, not redesigning the ship. But what you'll notice is in Starjump Fleet Viewer, if you load the Polaris, it looks good, it looks fine,
Yeah.
but it does look different than what a Star Citizen ship would in terms of like panel lines and what we know what's called palm decals, which is a texture layer that are on CIG ships. If you ever
Mm.
tear apart a CIG ship in 3D modeling software, CIG has a layer in there called palm decals, and that's all your panel lines, your rivet lines, your all that stuff, and they're a big deal. Like if you remove them, ships look different. They look a lot smoother and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and they lose that tactile quality. Um, so what I have to do on Fleet Viewer side is sort of approximate the fidelity, right? I don't like doing that though. So whenever the new files hit the game, we pull directly using StarFab, and you can bet that next week when the ship does its flyby and it's in the files, we will replace the
Yeah.
Polaris and Fleet Viewer with the proper model.
Yeah, you got some work to do, man. That's
Yeah, yeah,
that's exciting. So first off, not all heroes wear capes. That seems like you're taking on the Lord's work right there. That's crazy, man.
yeah. And a big shout out to VMXEO and Starlet, obviously, two other people that are part of Fleet Viewer with me,
Yeah.
play equal roles. I'm sure VMXEO will handle a lot of the Polaris this time around because it'll be a game file. So,
Yeah.
big hats off to him.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm gonna be taking the F7A as close as I can to the Polaris. Probably getting my ass shot out of the sky, more than likely. But I'm gonna get as close as I can to get into that. So here we go. Back to the video, and I'm pretty
Highlighting the F7 Mark IIs there too, which is sort of sometimes easy to forget, but I think the F7A Mark II and the F7C Mark II are going to play a big role in Invictus as well. Anvil has its own day on May 23rd to 24th, so I think you'll see some promos behind this. Big question mark for this will be if they're going to sell the F7A, the military variant.
What are your thoughts?
This may be unpopular. I think they should. But one way to get around the people that did the Overdrive event, which I was one of them, is I was thinking maybe Overdrive people get their F7A token for free right away. And then if you either make it to where the people buying the F7A can't buy it until IAE at the end of the year, or you open it up and it's just pretty pricey, but you could still get it. So if you decided not to do the event, you can still get the ship. You just pay a little bit more for it. Again, I'm very much in the mindset of like, I want this game to be made. I want CIG have the funding to make the game. So sell what you need to sell. I'm just kind of, the exclusivity's fine, but I think there's ways to make ships exclusive beyond just like, a model number. There's other things you could do.
Yeah, and now that I think about it, episode 28 when you were on, that was right whenever they were doing the F8, right? The F8 ticket system. Yeah, because we even called the episode like the ticket.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
So it's ironic to have you on right at the time of a potential, potential drama.
It is, yeah.
But I do agree with you, and I think we were in alignment in episode 28 as well. I agree with you. I do think this price should be sold Invictus Launch Week in some manner or fashion. Look, I'm fine if maybe those that did the Overdrive initiative is like a paint, or maybe a gun setup that maybe it's like the most expensive weaponry in the game. You already have it outfitted. The camo paint maybe is yours, but if you buy it, you have to buy the paint, or you have to, it's not available to you. I think there's that exclusivity that you could provide. But I do think we're going to hear some drama. I think there's going to be some people.
There's no way to please everyone on this.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always going to be someone that's unhappy with the decision, and that's fine. I respect that, and
Sure.
it's warranted. There's certain decisions CIG makes that I don't like either.
Yeah.
I fully get behind that. I just don't think there's an easy way to solve it. I'm just very much in the mindset of like, I want this damn game to get made, and for the game to get made, they need funding.
Yes.
And yes, the game has costed a lot, but they're also developing 2 AAA products, and games are expensive.
Yep.
A lot of my friends are in game design. I have a friend who's a very high senior level person at Bethesda. I have another person at Rockstar, and I can tell you right now, the money CIG's raised for 2 AAA games, it's actually not a lot compared to what other big AAA games cost. So they need funding. It's just a fact. I don't know what to I know $600-700 million does seem like a lot, but it's actually not a lot for big AAA multiplayer games.
that had to build everything from scratch.
Oh yeah, it's just not,
I agree.
So yeah, anyway.
No, I agree. All right, here we go. So that was a great call out. Thanks for pausing me there. I think this next, okay, first off, is that the medical Orc Mark X, or is that the medical outfit that I'm seeing for the first time, or what is that? What am I looking at?
So yeah, no one else has really been highlighting this, but I think it's interesting you said that. I do think we're going to get some medical armor. They had been saying recently in some sort of progress update or something that they were working on non-combat armor sets, more like utility and industrial armor sets.
Yes.
I think it would be, oh my god, they'd make so much bank making medical armor and like salvage themed armor and whatever. My favorite armor in the game actually is the Grey Cat aerial quicksilver armor. It's supposed to be the industrial Grey Cat armor.
Yeah,
it's my favorite armor in the game.
Very cool.
So if they made more industrial armor, I'd be all over it.
Yeah, I think, and this is, if you want to listen to Tree's episode from a year ago, we were talking armor and what to use in certain situations. But like, imagine a medical outfit that didn't cost you to carry medical supplies. Yep. Right. So like, your slot wasn't taken up by a paramedical device, or your slots weren't taken up by, because that was the purpose of the outfit. Super interesting.
Imagine a medical, I don't think this would ever be in for like a 323 if they were to release medical armor, but imagine in the future when they do the full visors, different types of visors, which they are going to do. Yeah. Imagine the medical visor sort of, whenever you look at someone, it instantly almost gives you a little bit of an X-ray vision of whatever their health status is. I mean, there's a lot of fun things they could do with it.
Yeah. Well, Chris listens to this podcast, so
Chris, note that down.
I know you're taking notes. So.
Put that on your sticky notes for me.
While you're getting 323 released, please. And then it looks like you're looking at the ramp and the wheel of the URSA Medical, which we'll get into here in a little bit, but I thought that was cool. There's a great image. So
yeah. So
take it away.
There's two things to me that are really interesting from this. The first one, obviously, and cut me off if you were about to talk on this, is obviously the URSA medical rover, or the NURSA as everyone's calling it, which is a great name.
Nice.
Here's the thing about that. It's not the most exciting thing in the world, but it's super useful, and I would probably want to pick one up. But it's a C8. It's a C8R on wheels. It's sort of like a. Yeah, they were probably going to make that. You know what I mean? There's not like any big surprises there. So I think that's sort of even why they show it like this. They're like, yeah, we get it. It's, but it's going to be helpful. Yeah. But they were like, you know what? We need to jazz this up, so put the Polaris back there.
Yeah, that's right.
But the thing on the Polaris, I think that stands out that I want to call out is right to the right side of your head. If you're only hearing the audio of this, sorry, you can see the lights that frame the side loading cargo ramp on the Polaris, which means they did keep that, which is awesome because I really love that.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the port side of the ship. Later on, we see the starboard side of the ship, and it has the same thing. So that may confirm, maybe, I'm speculating here, that the side loading ramps are on both sides, which would make the Polaris a drive-through, which could be really cool.
That would be awesome. Yeah. That'd be great. Yeah, okay, so whatever ship that this NURSA can fit on is going to probably end up being my daily driver, because I love being out. I hate going back to a capital city. I hate going back to orbital stations. Like, I want a bed log in the middle of nowhere. Well, unfortunately, unless you have like a backpack full of cruises, you've got to heal somehow. You've got to get your resources somehow. But there's something about flying around the C8R that you can just heal yourself. You can't bedlog, but you can heal yourself. But having this inside of a ship that doesn't have a medical bed is like the perfect combination for me. I can see myself putting this inside of and I don't know if it fits. Don't quote me on this, listeners. But if it fits inside of like one of the new Zeuses, or if it's inside of well, it can't fit inside of the C1 if it can't fit inside of a Zeus. But
it would definitely fit in something like a Corsair or a Connie or any of those. And again, it immediately sort of ups the usefulness of those ships, because obviously those ships can't carry something like a C8R.
Correct.
And they don't have medical facilities. So
that's a great pull. I'm ashamed you said Corsair because I hate Drake, but whatever. That's
a shame. That's a damn shame.
I know.
We're gonna have to talk about that one other day.
Yeah.
We'll have to debate. It'll be the Great Star Citizen debate.
That's right. Until the Kraken comes out. But before the Kraken comes out, we're going to have an MPUV variant.
There's going to be a lot of Drake converts when the Kraken comes out. Although, very interesting side note, I won't divert this conversation, but I did find it really interesting that the Cutter is the most popular starter ship ever sold. CIG said that not too long ago, and that did surprise me, actually.
I hate everything about what you just said, but I actually don't mind. Okay, real quick, just because I know someone new is listening. I don't have a problem with Drake. Drake is the homeless person's like spaceship in the future. Roger. If you have duct tape, you can make yourself a Drake. I really don't have a problem. At the end of the day, I actually enjoyed the Cutter, the exploration version. What was it called? The Cutter.
The Cutter, the Rambler.
Rambler. There you go. Scout was the radar one. Yeah. But like, I don't have an issue with them. And one of my favorite ships is the Vulture. So I can't be too.
Here's how I describe them. They're the blue collar ship.
Oh.
They're the working man ship.
Okay.
We don't have all your fancy technology.
Well, now I feel bad.
Okay, we get out there and we get the job done. Okay, If they ever do make a garbage ship,
yes,
it definitely needs to be Drake.
So the Raptor should have been a Drake ship. All right, so back to the video. In the background, you have. I guess we can guess, but I'm pretty damn sure. I mean, you can see the letters MPUV on the sides there, but this is an MPUV variant. The way we know it's different is you can see the little rhino mount or the little horn, unicorn horn, or whatever you want to call it, at the front. But this is a new ship, new MPUV. I'm assuming it is the cargo one that picks up the 32 SU containers. Well, let me pause real quick. What do you know about the ship? What is your speculation? Tell us more.
Well, it's not the first time we've seen it. We saw it in the Hull C trailer. It makes an appearance there multiple times. It's actually what is loading the Hull C. It's got the little cargo thing on it, or the little tractor beam on it, and stuff. Here's what I hope it is. I hope it's not just a new variant of the MPUV. I think that would be a mistake. What I think it is, and what I hope it is I think that CIG is just going to change the SKUs for how they sell the ship. And I'm hoping that the MPUV is just now a true modular ship. You can buy the base, and you can attach a cargo or a tractor beam to that gimbal, mount there, or if you want or not. But I'm hoping the MPUV is now just a modular base. You can buy all the modules. You can buy the cargo module or the personnel module, whatever. Maybe they'll have a medical module. Who knows what else they'll have for it? But I'm hoping they're just relaunching. The previous SKUs, I'm hoping they sort of just retire those. You keep those SKUs in your hangar if you have them. They're sort of a legacy thing. And then they just change that on the storefront to reflect the MPUV. The MPUV is now modular. So
that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant, because like this whole entire time I've been thinking having like 3 or 4 MPUVs, one for each purpose. And this one, you see in the video that you were talking about, you see it just gutted out, and it's holding, it's holding boxes or containers.
It's supposed to be a modular ship. So, the big question on modular ships though is like, well, do they go back? Because a lot of these modular ships were sold as like presets previously. And those SKUs are what they are. And CIG can't really change those because they're tied to your account. And if you ever melted them, you need to be able to get the value you put back in. So I think those SKUs will be retained, just retired. And I think on the storefront, you'll see the SKU change for the MPUV. And it will now be a modular thing, because I never suspected that the Retaliator was going to be the first and only modular ship we were going to get. I knew we were going to get more. So the MPUV is probably the best one to start with, to be quite honest with you.
Sure. No, it's super smart. And I completely forgot about the Retaliator being the first modular coming out, or at least what they announced a couple weeks ago. Do we think the Retaliator is making an appearance in Invictus Launch Week as the modular? I
did up until yesterday. I did up until CIG teased a new Aegis thing. It depends. I personally think we're going to get the Retaliator gold standard on Aegis Day. It's actually already committed, I think, in the 323 roadmap. So I think it's a guarantee that we'll get it. We may get more from Aegis. There's a bigger discussion there, actually, surrounding Aegis in general that I could go into, but the Retaliator, yeah, it needs to come out. The gold standard work had been done for a while. Modules have been ready for a while. It's time to get it out. Time to get that gold standard to be into people's hands. And that's another one that I think we'll see the SKUs on the store change. I think you'll be able to buy the base variant and then your modules.
Got it. Nope, that's
You may be able
gorgeous.
to package them. That would be a smart idea from CIG, is that they allow you to build your own package on these modular ships, meaning you could choose the Retaliator in 2 modules or 3 modules, and depending on what you choose, you get, a $10 discount or whatever overall, a little bit of a discount based off the pack you're building. So
Is that kind of what they did with the Endeavor? Because couldn't you buy, or is that just that's just modules entirely?
Yeah, it kind of is what they did, although it wasn't super flexible, but you did get a discount if you bought the modules individually.
Got it.
And I think you should be able to do that here, but let's say if you group them with the ship, so let's say if you're buying the base ship and modules at the same time, you kind of add them to a pack, much like you do with paints. Sometimes when you add a ship to a store, it'll like suggest, hey, buy these paints for the ship too.
Yeah.
I could see them doing that with modules.
Got it. Which brings up, this wasn't on our agenda. I'm throwing this right in front of you. Sorry, but that modularity brings up the Galaxy. Now, I'm pretty sure we're all aligned. It's going to be the Polaris first, then the Galaxy, and then the Perseus. Or there's an order that we're talking about. But do we think any news or anything new is going to be announced with the modularity and the monthly reports, with RSI being one of the first days, if not the first day? Do we think anything new about the Galaxy is going to come out, or is it just going to hit the pledge store for us to purchase?
I don't see anything new about the Galaxy being mentioned right now, or at least during ILW, mainly because ILW is already feeling pretty crowded on the amount of stuff that's going to be available, and you got to be careful, I think, from a marketing perspective, as someone who works in marketing, of crowding the field a little bit too much, especially when you're trying to hype up a $750 ship that's probably going to be more expensive when it goes flight ready.
Yeah,
it's kind of like you want to be careful saying, hey, look at this big expensive thing we want you to buy, and check out this other big expensive thing that will come a little bit after that. It sort of dilutes the waters. So if I had to guess, I think in the ISC about the Polaris, which I think we'll get, they may highlight that, hey, look at all this great work we're doing to the Polaris. This is going to carry over to the Galaxy, like we said at SitCon. We're going to carry over some of these assets, but that's about as much as it will be. I don't think they want to dilute the water too much.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to the video. Actually, there's a lot to digest on this just one image. Like, I love the box. Like, clearly they're looking at more different versions of boxes to lift and carry, and I don't know. I like the design language that they're considering.
Yeah, really cool.
There was something. I think this was just there we go. So far, first off, I don't know who this is. Do we know anything about this? Because like when they showed this video,
I heard it was a meme. There's like a meme of an old man looking just like this, drinking a cup of coffee that's going around. I don't know what it is, but I think they're riffing on it.
Okay.
It shocked me.
Because like I've been watching Squadron 42 closely, like the reels closely, and I'm like, I should recognize this person. Like I've been scratching my head. I know they're using the subscriber flare cup, but
is that a new suit? It says cargo on it. I didn't know if it was like a new kind of clothing. I didn't know if there was some new cargo clothing.
There you go.
But I hadn't seen that one before.
Yeah.
Unless it's available in like the cargo decks in the store there, and I just never knew about it, which is possible.
That's a good pull.
Yep.
All right, so observation deck, and then here is, I think this is the outro.
So, yeah, the only thing I'll say about one of those previous shots when the Polaris is like high up in the sky, you do see for a minute what looks to be its side guns, the port and starboard main turrets sticking out, and it looks like those may have been changed to quad turrets. Originally they were duals. They may have been changed to quads. It's really hard to see. I've done a little bit of zooming in on it. It's right next shot, that one. You can see there on that far left side of the ship. Yep, do you see those 4 little barrels? They're not connected to the ship actually, so there's actually like a load problem there, and that's probably because the turrets themselves are still sort of placeholder. Maybe, regardless, again, it goes back to that conversation where I'm like, there's a lot of confusion over what armament the ship has.
Good call.
So, we'd never seen quads on the side of it before, and actually kind of small looking quads. So, again, we don't know, but just a little thing to point out.
No, it's great. That's great information. There's and I can pull up my tweet, but I actually took the Polaris's ship brochure that actually has, and again, this is outdated. This was years and years ago, but we could take a look at that and reference it as well. But to your point, all of this has been changed and modified, so it can't be.
And if you compare them to the Hammerhead right over there, which has a quad mount size 4s on each little winglet there, the turret on the Polaris looks very small, so people are curious if it's a quad size 3 or something like that. We just have to wait and see, but it just kind of goes back into that previous comment I made about question marks around the ship. So
yeah, there's gonna be a lot of us trying to get a closer look in Invictus Launch Week for sure.
If the turrets have shrunk in size, I think that's just more confirmation that CIG's saying, hey, this is not a do everything ship, this is our torpedo boat.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I like. I like the fact that ships are starting to become more.
Go that route.
Yeah, the more focused, the better.
Yeah.
This was my thumbnail image for the YouTube video, so you'll see. But I love the flyover. There we go. That's probably about the best, the best look you're gonna get of the Polaris. But
yeah, great shot of it. I've inspected it heavily. One of my favorite things about the Polaris and its exterior work is that CIG did a lot of small little exterior lighting details, like little detail lights, that I think really help with the scale of the ship. I really think they should do a pass on the Idris with this attention to detail, putting some of those lights on it, because the Idris sometimes has the problem of looking kind of like too flat and featureless. And I don't think in the PU, but in Squadron 42, I don't think that's the case. I think it has a higher level of detail, so I hope they bring some of that over to the PU version. But it's really successful here on the Polaris. You can see those back doors there. There's 4 little lights on the starboard side there that are near a door that opens that will reveal the turrets that are hidden inside there. Kind of a cool little detail.
Yeah.
And then right in front of that, you look what may be the sliding door for the big airlock, and it may be a capital size airlock now, it looks like. You see the side loading entry ramp there on the starboard side of the ship now, right below. Again, sort of highlighting that this may be a drive-through ship, which will be really great for loading your ship in your persistent hangar. But yeah, just I really love the attention to detail here. It looks really slick.
These are phenomenal observations. I would have never kind of clued into this, but you can tell from the angle of the lights, like it's clearly showing like a direction, pulls your eyes in to like that. That's
exactly.
It's a great call.
Another little detail too that's hard to see on this image, but I kind of enhanced and zoomed in, is those winglets that are on the side there that got the lights on them. Those winglets have these radial hinges at their base, so those do animate. So that'll be nice to see.
Cool.
We saw a glimpse of that in the white box preview CIG showed at SitCon. So I'm assuming when the ship goes into certain modes, those winglets will animate and stuff, which will be kind of cool.
Yeah, with master mode switching between gun mode and navigation mode, like that's probably what you're referencing.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's great. I like I do like that modularity. I do love the ship animations as much as I dislike the Corsair. I'm not an asymmetric kind of person, but just the amount of movement, right? Anytime the VTOL kicks in with some of these ships, like I love it. Makes it feel more real. Makes it feel more.
It does. Yeah.
Like you're controlling the ship. So
absolutely.
Let's get through this real quick. I wish the graphics were this smooth. And there we go. So, and done. And again, for those listening, on those of you on YouTube, it's May 17th through May 29th. It's going to be a shitload of fun. What you did not see, and what we're going to end the podcast talking about, because we're already an hour into this, I do want to cover your thoughts on the Idris and the Javelin. So a couple of new things to expect for Invictus Launch Week. The Idris is going to be tourable, and thank God. This is how I know CIG is listening to Beyond the Verse, or it was just already it was already in the works. But the event that happened with the Idris several months ago at this point, all I wanted to do, and all the majority of the community in my experience wanted to do, was just see the damn thing. I didn't want to have to fight the server and fight people just so I can get the inside of the Idris. I just wanted to board it. And here we are. We are given this opportunity to take unguided tours of the Idris. So Grim, let's start with the Idris. What are your thoughts of it being tourable? And let's just go from like your experiences or what you hope to experience in Invictus Launch Week to when we can expect it in our hangars.
Yeah, well, I'm real excited that's going to be tourable. The Idris and the Javelin are a ship that I know the interiors pretty well just because I've looked through the files, so it'd be nice for that to finally come out. And seeing it in the game is different, obviously, than just inspecting the files. So I'm excited to tour it as well. I've never toured the inside of it in game, so that'll be very exciting.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I thought the scene that Idris event was ill planned. But I think making it tourable for the rest of us actually helps the people who do want to battle the Idris, and because it removes all the people that are there just sightseeing. So
Yeah.
it really benefits both groups for them to allow and open up the Idris. The Idris and Javelin I think are interesting um, for this ILW in particular, though, just because just as recently as last October, we got confirmation that the Idris will be in players' hands when Squadron launches.
Right.
I'm not saying any dates, but let's assume Squadron launches either end of year or sometime in 2025, maybe the first half of 2025. Regardless of where that date hits, there's now a light at the end of the tunnel for the Idris. So people are now looking at the Idris in the same way they're looking at the Polaris as a ship coming semi-soon.
Yeah.
So, obviously they're opening that up a little bit more. And again, it goes back to that. We need to sell these when they go flight ready. So, they got to start introducing us to them a little bit and getting people excited about them. And remember, now this won't be the case with the Polaris because it's not a hull limited anymore, but the Idris is hull limited. We've only had this happen one other time with the 890, but they're probably going to try to drum up Idris sales even though it's hull limited. As much as they can. I would imagine we're going to get a few more Idris promotions with chances to win Idrises and stuff leading up to its eventual release. Because again, say what you will, but one of the best marketing things this game has going for it is big, giant ships that you can walk around on.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It just is what it is. I know some people are like, no, I'm here for the gameplay. It is what it is. People like two things from this game.
Yeah.
Okay, I guarantee you, if you polled people, a vast majority would they like that they can walk around their big ships, and they love that you can fly from surface to space with no loading times. When you just sort of boil that experience down, right? And the Idris plays a big role in that. It's also our hero squadron ship, so they've got a lot invested here. So I'm glad they're opening it up for us to tour. Now, what I would like is for this to be the Squadron 42 Idris that we can tour with all the clutter inside of it, which CIG's talked about. I don't think it will be that, but I wish that's what it was.
Never know. You never know.
Yeah, you never know.
I mean, that's a really good pull, though, because even the Javelin, which we'll get into in a couple seconds, even the Javelin is decorated or outfitted with the Warhammer signage, the Warhammer, signs and displays. So I why not? Squadron 42 happened years ago. In game lore, so this very well could be something like that. But super interesting. I agree with you. I wanted them to change course. Like I wanted it to be like a Citizen Con surprise. Anybody who has the Idris can now fly it. But it seems like they're really committing to Squadron 42.
And they may still do that. I mean, CIG has not been above changing some plans on some of these ship releases to drum up interest. And they still could do that with the Idris if they get into a position where maybe Squadron's going to be pushed back a little further than they wanted, maybe just for polishing and stuff.
Yeah.
And they want to... See, here's the thing. They're going to start that marketing campaign for Squadron soon, I would imagine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's after Invictus or whatever, sometime this year. They're going to start like a proper marketing campaign for it because you usually want to start those, 8 months early from release for any product. And when we see that marketing engine start churning, if delays happen to the release that they weren't anticipating, that throws their marketing schedule off. And now you got to think up new things to keep that interest bubbling. And you never know. They could, because of that, go, you know what, let's put the Idris out there a little early. It's not going to really ruin the surprise too much for the mass market, but it keeps excitement going because you're guaranteed to get your Kotaku article written, that finally the Idris hits the game after 50 years of,
That's right.
Both positive and negative, you're going to get those articles. So
yeah. Well, let's end on the Javelin. Just real quick, some context to my listeners, viewers. The Javelin, I go back to one of my favorite memories in Star Citizen when I first joined 2.5, 3. I don't know at this point. It's all muddy. Something as simple as me and my brother, or me and Conef from episode 1 and episode 50, just walking in Invictus Launch Week, walking onto the Hammerhead, or the Warhammer Javelin, and just experiencing this massive ship with the lore. You're gonna one day be able to fly this as an org. It was very, for somebody who loves going to like real life military vessels and touring them, this was a very surreal experience for me. And so being able to do this for the Idris is just another experience I can't wait for. Javelin. All right. I asked you earlier. I asked you yesterday. I was like, hey, let's talk about this today. Very few places on the Javelin were open to tour. You could tour maybe the outskirts and like the briefing room, and like that was about it. Everything else was locked up.
Pretty small section.
Yeah. So what? I don't know, Grim. What are we expecting this year? Is it the same old, or do you think more will be open? Talk to me about the Javelin.
That's a great question. I don't think they have to open it up anymore, mainly because I don't think it's going to be a focus. They've already said it's going to come after Squadron because they have some bigger plans for it, especially surrounding modularity. I think the ship has 6 modular rooms in it, if I remember correctly. But so they don't have to open it up beyond that. As a matter of fact, they may deliberately be trying to put more focus on the Polaris and the Idris. But, and as I told you, and I showed you some sort of behind-the-scenes visuals for, they have the interior. They could open it up for sure. They definitely could open the entire ship up. I've heard there's one room in the Javelin that still needs some work beyond the modular stuff. So I'm not sure if that's accurate. I still think the Javelin is essentially done. Now, when I say essentially done, don't confuse me. For the PU, CIG would need to do additional work. I'm sure they got to do things like light switches and all that crap that aren't in the Squadron version. But suffice it to say, I think a lot of it's there and definitely could be opened up. I would love for them to open it up. The Javelin is a ship I'm actually maybe interested in acquiring this year. I don't know, to see if things work out, but yeah. So it's an amazing ship. I don't know did you see the video that was put out recently of players flying the Javelin around?
I did.
323?
Yeah.
And generating the big tidal waves. And all.
Yeah.
It's just an impressive ship. It looks cool. I actually think it looks cooler than like the Idris, just from a look standpoint. I would love a capital ship that's Idris sized but shaped like the Javelin.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And like you said, I have been on the Warhammer every Invictus Launch Week since joining the game. Enjoy it. Sitting in the briefing room for an org night with Sole Provision. We're going to take all, we're going to be 15, 20 strong. We're going to sit in the seats of the briefing room and just have a fun little RP session. Like I cannot wait for this. So I don't think it needs to be opened up, but man, I really wish they would just.
They could easily open up just additional sections without opening up the entire ship. What I would love for them to do, because I think this would be pretty impressive to people, is, and Nathan Dearsley from CIG did show this in a video. I think it's called The Making of Big Guns of UEE video. But if you go back and watch that, Nathan Dearsley takes you through some of the Javelin development. It's kind of interesting because he really talks about how easy the Javelin was to develop compared to other ships. But one of the things I would love for CIG to do if they were going to open it up more is open it up to where we can at least make our way to the bridge, because the bridge of the Javelin is impressive. Like when you walk out there, it's first off, it's huge, but obviously the way they did the windows and the canopy, you see everything. And I think that would be cool if they open that up. So maybe they open up the airlock, you can go around the outside skirt, go to the bridge elevator, because there's an elevator that takes you up, and then go up the elevator and see the bridge. I think that'd be really cool. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Graham, we're gonna call it on that. I know the agenda. We were gonna talk about the Aegis Firebird, but we're at time. Yes.
So I want to be respectful of your time. We both have to get to work. I got a kid's field day to get to. So, man, blessings. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. A wealth of knowledge.
You're gonna have plenty to talk about through ILW, trust me. So you got shows for days.
Absolutely. So one last time, I always give my guests, no matter how often they're on, the professional courtesy of plugging. So one last time, where can we get more of Starjump Grim?
Sure.
Go for it.
You can get more of me by just going to Twitch, and I'm Starjump_Grim on Twitch. So appreciate you giving me a follow over there and looking out for me there. Starjump stuff in general, though, follow our Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. We're at Starjump.org. Obviously, we have a YouTube. You can just type Starjump, will come up, and then just go on Fleet Viewer, post your fleet images places, enjoy the use Hanger Link. Hanger Link is really useful during events like this, and just we appreciate all the support people give us, especially for a group that is pretty inconsistent in what we release and when we release it. So thank you for that patience and support, and to people like you, Sulcy, for having us on and throwing out those invites occasionally. We really appreciate it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And for more beyond,
one last thing, I'll just throw this in real quick. Yeah. If you're in Columbus, Ohio area, June 1st, I will be at Equinox. We're having a big Starjump booth. There's going to be free giveaways. I got Starjump posters, all kinds of cool stuff. So I will be there.
Amazing.
June 1st, Columbus, Equinox.
Awesome. Yeah, we got some org members that are going, so I'll make sure they know to stop by and say hi.
I'll give them some free stuff.
All right, for my plug real quick, if you want to become part of the conversation, email us at contact@beyondtheversehq.com. Like I said at the beginning of this show, we do a poll and a Q&A. So participate in that, respond, and we'll talk about it at the beginning of every single episode. Our YouTube video replays are /@BTV_cast. And then our social medias is /BTV_cash. Cast. We'll go with that. So I hope this finds everybody well. Thank you again, Starjump Grim. I hope, again, this finds everybody well. Safe travels as you traverse beyond the verse. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.